Να καλησπερίσω το ακροατήριο που έχει την υπομονή να μείνει μαζί μας στο πάνελ αυτό που ασχολείται με τις πόλεις για ανθρώπους και το δημόσιο χώρο στα πλαίσια της ιδέας της πόλης των 15 λεπτών. Είμαστε ένα μικρό πάνελ. Μετά τη σύντομη εισαγωγή μου στα ελληνικά θα συνεχίσουμε με την αγγλική γλώσσα για να είμαστε πιο διαδραστικοί με τους καλεσμένους μας. Και ο σκοπός είναι να έχουμε τις τοποθετήσεις μας, αλλά ταυτόχρονα να δώσουμε τον λόγο και σε εσάς, το ακροατήριο, για μια πιο διαδραστική συζήτηση. I've done the introduction in Greek, Remco and Marina. Our panel is entitled Cities for People Reimagining Public Space, and we are going to talk about the 15-minute city, which is a concept for designing cities in order the majority of people to reach social and economic activities in only 15 minutes. In my opinion, it's rather a recipe for a good and sustainable lifestyle and not a religion or a doctrine. Density, diversity of uses and activities, and car-free public space are the ingredients of this recipe. And we cannot force anyone to change lifestyle. It is not mandatory. It should be definitely an option, an alternative for all of us. It can be seen also as a human right because it is tied to our biology, our physiology, and our cultural history for so many thousand years that we have left spending most of our movements walking and not driving. Our debate will start from the Cyprus reality and go through the issues of the neighborhood layout, the people, habits, and behaviors. So I will start from the guests, and I would kindly ask them to comment on the Cypriot reality. Marina is aware of the Cypriot reality. Remco is a freshman.
That's right, yeah.
An observer.
So I would give
2 days of Cyprus
Marina
reality.
For her prior experience.
Yes, I already have work experience in the Cyprus reality. Yes, I think it's very important that we have this panel right after the mobility one, because we need to show the difference. Even though the 15-minute city concept is defined by the access to services within 15 minutes of a walk, so a priority is given to this concept to how we move, but we need to understand that it's not only about the streets and the movements, we also need to consider the whole function of the city. So it's the people and the users that are there. So proximity is one of the key elements of this concept of the 15-minute city. So what can I access from my neighborhoods? What social infrastructure is there? What health services are there? What commerce is available? So we need to rethink. It's a more philosophical approach to how we make the cities. So I think it's super important that for the ones that were already present in the previous panel, we'll see that we shift the way that we talk about the streets, because we are seeing it in a more holistic way this time, not from the efficiency and flow perspective, but also from the quality of what we offer. Cyprus is facing a lot of challenges if we talk about this concept. Urban sprawl, car dependency, and these are not specific to Cyprus, of course. These are also obvious in other cities and other places in the world, but the way that these are manifested in our urban fabric and in our lifestyle is probably unique to Cyprus, because we have some specific characteristics, a history that maybe has defined the course of the development, and maybe the planning that we have, the planning regulations, and sometimes the lack of planning regulations. So we need to be super careful when we try to translate and adapt good examples, successful examples from outside to bring them inside. And something that is not often used when we talk about the 15-minute cities, because we are focusing more on active mobility, we don't think so much about the bus, about the public transport, which is important because it can act like the backbone of the multimodality, because they were talking before about the mobility hubs. And because in Cyprus we have such a low percentage of use of the bus system, which is our only public transport system, this makes it more difficult, because in some other countries, enhancing active mobility can become more possible if there is already a good level of bus or train use. Here we don't have that. So that is, I think it's a very big challenge. I will give the floor to you because I can talk forever.
Okay. I would just add that we have a lot of regulations. We don't have planning, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, I can add something to that from the broader perspective. First of all, I want to thank you that I can be here and to give my opinion on this 15 minutes city. I was here already from Wednesday, and I now have a good impression of half of Cyprus. We drove along the island, and a part of Limassol. There are some great opportunities, I will say, for Limassol. But I want to first look at a broader perspective. What are, in fact, the benefits of having this 15 minutes city? And when you look at the climate adaptivity, the climate change, we are facing, and these examples I'm showing you are from Holland and Belgium. We are facing a problem with the climate, and if we have an opportunity to get rid of a lot of pavement and we can change that into green spaces, green areas, then we can diminish this problem as a whole. The other thing, the other benefit, can you scroll? Can you scroll?
Yeah.
The other benefit that's not really known is, in fact, the economic benefit, because a lot of people think that in order to have a shop, in order to have a sound shop that has a good turnover, you should have your cars directly to the shops. But it turns out that if you have an area that's accessible for pedestrians and for cyclists, in the end it becomes an economic vital environment. What they see is that people in cars tend to spend more money, but people on bikes tend to be there more often, and in the end they spend more money. So I think that's also an important issue to know. The other one is the possibilities of creating a new system, a new ecosystem of tourism and for the citizens. I think it's very important that you're not only looking for the benefits of tourism as mass tourism and a lot of people who can come to this island to see all the nice things of it, but that you also know that tourism and citizens can be a system together, that they can help each other, and that you have a system that in which tourism is part of the system of the citizens, and I think that's also a very important issue to know. And oh, you skipped one. And the last one is, of course, health and well-being. There are quite some surveys on the health that's increasing when you add green spaces. In the Netherlands, there even is an application where you can just put in the square meters of green you add, and then they calculate the diminishment of the cost of healthcare. I'm not sure if it really works that way, but the nice thing is, and that's really proven, that if you are in a greener environment, you are in a healthier environment, and that also brings a better environment for you.
Well, Marina, how optimistic are you, according to what Remco said, about some targets that some other cities have already been there? How optimistic are you about Cyprus and Cyprus cities?
Well, I can say that I am optimistic about some aspects of this transition from a very car-dependent society to a more people-oriented society. I am optimistic when I think about the scale of our urban settlements and human settlements. So I think that the distances in Cyprus, and I am a person who doesn't use a car. I don't have my own car. So I perceive the real distances of the city by bike or by bus, and I do think that the distances are not too big. So that is a very big positive thing about Cyprus becoming a 15-minute city. But then there are some other things that are making me a bit more pessimistic. Because one thing is that the model share that we have seen other slides before with percentages that show that we are very car dominated. But there is also the car ownership, which is very important, how to tackle that. Because a lot of people tend to buy a car, so then they tend to use it. So that's when lifestyle choices become very important, and we need more anthropological, let's say, approach to things to understand why people choose certain modes of transport. And because we don't have the tradition of working in such a very complex and holistic way on these topics, our planning culture, let's say, it's more recent, and it had to also solve some other problems that we had after the division, and not only. I think that I'm not pessimistic, because as a person I'm not pessimistic, but I think I need to be convinced, let's say. Yes, I think I will stop it there.
Okay. What about you, Remco? Did you observe any lifestyle change in Netherlands during the past decades, for example? Is it something that can be achieved?
I think in the Netherlands we are in a privileged position that the use of bikes is already very much. I think every person in the Netherlands on average has at least one, but on average I think they have 2 bikes. Myself, I have 3 or 4 bikes. So I think that's a privileged situation. And in Holland now we are facing the problem that with the electric bikes as a new means of transportation, we're having problems with all these different speeds. So you have the bicycles that go on an average speed of 15 kilometers per hour. The electric bikes, 25 kilometers per hour. Then you have the scooters, 30, 35, and the cars. And it's quite difficult to merge it, to mingle that. What was your question again? Sorry.
You have seen a lifestyle change.
Oh, okay, the change. Yeah. So this is changing, and when I look at the facts and figures they showed this morning, where was 92% of the users were car users. In Holland, it's like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and that's not really shifting, but they're working on even having less cars in the Netherlands, especially in the cities, and also introducing other means of designing streets. For example, some years ago we introduced the bike lanes, not as apart from the car, but the street is the bike lane. and the cars are just as a guest in this streets. So this is one of the examples that is changing. And maybe to add on the session before, we have now a very nice system of transport after the train transport, where you can have a bike from the station and use that for the after and before transportation.
Okay.
So these are things that are changing at the moment.
Great. This leads us to the next subject, the street space. In Cyprus, we have a huge surface covered by streets. The 30% of, maybe 30% of city surface is covered by public streets. For example, in a neighborhood in Germany, the public streets are 10% of the surface. And we feel that we need more streets. How can we make this an advantage instead of a disadvantage? How can we reimagine the street space, the high street and the local street space?
Yes. I think that this whole 15-minute city invites us to do exactly this exercise, to see how we can convert public space into people space instead of street for cars. And to see these spaces that we move as spaces that are destinations, that are places that we can stay and do things and be with people. And we do that easier when we are walking or cycling instead of when we have a huge machine all over our body that is not easy to move with it, and we have to park it somewhere and pay for it and na. So this is a very good exercise to do. And in order to do this and to imagine it, because we have a lot of resistance, because we are used to that in Cyprus. I will just go back to some graphics. Yes, one before. We are used to this kind of model where we have the pedestrian space very limited, the car is dominant, a very boring situation, but this is what we see, and we don't perceive it so much because we are normally in the car. And then if we want to rethink of that public space that is between one private property and another private property, how we can use it, there are actually many ways to do it and to reimagine it. But to help people imagine, whether it's residents, inhabitants, or children, or policymakers and designers, we need to, in my opinion, we need to experiment more. We need to explore these possibilities with more temporary and pilot solutions. So take specific streets and test them. Have this more experimental and playful approach to things. And in that way, we can potentially allow people to see these places as destinations, these streets as destinations. And then think, like I was saying before, it's not only the street space, what are the functions that are that accompany this street landscape? Do I have a nice cafe? Do I have nice benches? So the whole equipment that we have in the street, do we have trees? It's important to have trees because it makes the whole experience more comfortable. So the design of spaces, it's something that we need to change. We need to add new standards for the design, I believe, and to slowly show some examples in various areas in cities, but also maybe in rural areas in Cyprus. And then if we have local examples, then it's easier to have this conversation with the local community, I believe. Because if we talk about Amsterdam, I lived in Amsterdam, I loved it, but it's hard to bring Amsterdam here. We don't want that.
No.
We need to live and admire Amsterdam where it is and make Cyprus admirable as well. So, yeah.
We can bring Remco here. What about you, Remco?
Yeah, and I totally agree. You should learn from the good examples, and you shouldn't copy it. I just want to react on this slide. As you can see, and I think it's really important. As you can see, like 100 years ago, the streets were owned by pedestrians. and in fact, they still now they should own the public space. It's public space. It's not car space. It's public space. So I think that's important that you try to find a way where you can reclaim this public space again and to add opportunities to sit, to meet, to speak with each other, maybe to have a beer or a coffee, but that mustn't be obliged. And one of the important notices is that if you look at the usage of the public spaces, and this is the example for the Dutch situation, you can see that if there is a car driving at a speed of 15 kilometers per hour, it uses 140 square meters. Comparing to a bike, it's only 5 square meters. So it means that if you get rid of a lot of cars in your city, you have a whole lot of space to change. You have a whole lot of space to make it greener again. You have a whole lot of space to add trees and all these things. So I think it's important to see this this diagram to realize what's the effect of cars in your city. And I'm not saying that you have to change it overnight, because I don't think that will work. Like 92% of the people are using cars. You can't change that overnight. I think you have to start small and you have to think big, but you have to act small. I think that's one of the important things. And yeah, I think it's a good idea to start experimenting, to start a way of redesigning this public spaces, adding more green, adding more places to sit, adding more places to be, and adding more places to meet each other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Remco. I think we have some minutes to give floor to the audience. Maybe we have some reactions. Μπορείτε να μιλήσετε και στα ελληνικά ή στα αγγλικά, αν έχετε κάποια τοποθέτηση. Yes, Laura. No. We have Laura. Anyone else? And only Laura. Okay. Just a moment. I'll take the microphone.
Yeah,
and Laura, and then
want to change to another one?
Okay, thank you very much. Short but very informative presentations. We are aware of the term, which it seems to be now in Europe, acquiring this kind of negativism in relation to the freedom of citizens in using the car and so on and so forth. But I think you've placed it, both of you, very well, that the 15-minute city has to do with the improvements of the environment and the distribution of uses. So it's clearly a matter of planning. I think focusing on the discussion of the car, which is a strategic general issue, it clutters the notion of the 15-minute city. I've lately, at my age, I've picked up an electric bike, and I can definitely say that the use is patchy. I will go to certain areas, but definitely not in others, in terms of safety and comfort. So the issue of the environment, the environmental quality of the places, it's absolutely critical. So I think if we use the issue of the car use, there's no problem with the short car travel, 5 minutes to go to the supermarket and bring your shopping back. If we leave that aside, I think focusing on these two is going to be more constructive, I think, in terms of promoting the topic.
Thank you, Laura. Can you pass the microphone to, please say your name before.
Hi, I'm George. I'm with the Organization for Positive Urbanism. I have a question for Remco.
Yeah.
You said before that when you started that you visited Cyprus for the past few days, and you think that Limassol has a lot of opportunities. I wanted to ask, what are these opportunities that you have in mind?
What I meant with opportunities is that I think there is a lot to be done in Limassol. I didn't see all of Limassol, so I can't have a final conclusion. But what you see is that these public spaces are completely car-driven. Everything is in order to have the cars in their places. So there are no, or if there are sidewalks, they are too small, so you have to walk on the streets. What I also missed were squares. I'm a big fan of squares. And I think these are very much important to have a good city life and to add quality to your city. Also to add shade to your city, because I think it will be very hot here in summer. So that's one of the aspects I think it's very important. And the other thing is that I noticed that there are some white spaces. I don't think you can call them squares. There are some white spaces, but they're all car parks. So I think that's also important to think about what can you do if this project with bike sharing and with public transport will be a success. What you can do with spaces that will become available for other functions, for other means of use. So that's one of the other important aspects. Here is a picture of trying to reverse designing, and I think that's one thing you can start with already. You can start with the experience we talked about before. So you're not designing from a car point of view, but you're designing from a pedestrian point of view. And in the end, of course, cars will also be part of the urban fabric, of the urban structure. But you start with the pedestrians. Do they have enough space to walk? Is there enough space for the cyclists to cycle? And the session before, we were talking about bicycle lanes. To be honest, I'm not really a fan of bicycle lanes in the city centers. You can have bicycle lanes near the highways or to connect large distances. But in the end, I think it's a better solution to merge bicycles and cars together, because then the speed of the cars will also be lower, and I think that will also add to the quality of the city. So I think that's also an important notion to make. You want to hear something more, or is it enough for now? Okay.
Great. So we have time for one more question from the audience. And then
I would like also to mention, it's very important one, and one of the conditions when we were working on the meta design and part of the mission cities was any measure we take in the project has to ensure that it doesn't have any negative impact on the biodiversity, on the urban design as well. Mm-hmm. So we cannot take, for example, we need a new charging stations for electric vehicles. It cannot take any space that belongs to the biodiversity of the city, or the urban space that is dedicated to the cycling, walking, infrastructures, mm-hmm. etc. So we will have to, for every measure we implement, we have to prove that it's also not only net zero in terms of emissions, but net zero also in terms of the urban infrastructure as well, and we have to maintain it, that one. And I think that what is now the challenge of how we evaluate that one. Yeah, it's very important that any type of service we try now to improve with mobility doesn't have to happen always only on the transport infrastructure side. And this is where I agree completely, it's not only more like investing or changing or driving or separating or something like that, but simply use the benefit of the shared space to manage the area. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe just comment on the shared space a little bit because I know it's very important one for the cities, and I feel in 3 days being in Limassol, I got this impression there is a lot of opportunities for this one here.
Okay. You want me to comment on shared space? Yeah, because in Holland we have some shared spaces now. Does everyone know what a shared space means? Yeah. Okay. What I think is important that if there is the speed difference is too high, then you have really problems in implementing shared spaces. But on the other side, I think it can work very nice. We have a great example. I think there are some videos on the internet near the Amsterdam Central Station, where you can see that it's a complete mess. You see the pedestrians, you see the cyclists, you see the scooters. It's one mess of all kinds of people, but nothing happens. So it's a way of being alert, of knowing how to be a participant of the traffic, and I think that's a very nice example to see that shared spaces can work out really very nice. It looks as if it's not safe, but in the end nothing happens. So in the end it's safe, and so you're very much aware that something can happen. So that's one of the big advantages of shared space.
It's a pity because we have a very constructive audience, but unfortunately we run out of time. So I will.
Can we make it quick?
I will, of course, I will give the floor to Marina to summarize, to do a concluding comment.
To make a concluding comment, I would say it's hard to summarize because I can go in different directions. But thinking about what Laura said also before about the experience of when you are using an active mode of traveling. And thinking that in general, this 15-minute city conversation, it's not about the top-down approach. It's about also how we create more collaborative processes where we can see initiatives coming from collectives, from individuals, from groups, from the citizens themselves. And so the experience of the user is very, very important. So how the human body moves into the city is our focus in this case. And so that's why we talk about climate change and the impacts of climate change. So these are the modes of transport, the active travels are the modes of transport that are more impacted by what is happening to our planet. So if we want to improve their experience, then we need to really focus on that. So I think sometimes I say that we have to gradually go from something that seems impossible to something that is enjoyable. If we take a day in the summer in Cyprus, or not even summer, even before that, even now, a lot of people can say that it's, for me, it seems, I perceive it as impossible to walk outside. Impossible. It's like out of our options. And if we can shift with small and very targeted improvements from seemingly impossible to bearable, to comfortable, and then to enjoyable, to really invite people and to make a city, make some streets, some neighborhoods so enjoyable that people want to go and walk outside. Because I know Cypriots that go outside, they go out in other countries and they walk. They use their feet and they enjoy it. They can also do it here. So we need to shift and gradually go from impossible to really, I enjoy going outside. So the user experience is super important in this conversation. And we cannot, because we are talking about people-centric cities, we need to always refer back to the person, to the human body, and not talk about it from the God's perspective.
So I think now it's a good period because it's a pre-election period. It's
yes.
a good period for the society these forces that believe in the change to empower
yes.
the next generation of local government
yes.
in order to move a step forward.
And it's in our, as individuals and citizens, in our role to reclaim things and to ask for them. We have to really advocate for what we believe and what we think, and not just let others do, and then we had to live with the results of their actions or their decisions. So be active.
Great. Any last comments from Remco?
Yeah, as an urban designer, I can say I also want to seduce the people that they have a nice and comfortable environment, and that it's much more enjoyable than it's now, and that it's also an environment where you can just walk in the shade in a very good condition. I think that's very much important for me as a designer as well.
Instead of concluding, I will give the floor to Evie for a short comment.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Just small notes based on what Marina has said. People should advocate for more public space and really push forward this future city, and our cities have to be reimagined. We have to build a more sustainable model. Elections are good, democracy is good, but democracy says for equal space for all. And sustainable cities, livable cities means more environment friendly and social equity. Thank you.
So, thank you all. Have a nice conference and a nice weekend.